Good day, Saitlanders. How are you? We hope that you're very well. You may rest assured that I'm in a better mood than I was when I produced my last video. I was quite irritated by the end because I just knew that some of the people that I was talking to simply wouldn't have heard a word of that 33 minutes. 34 minutes, whatever it ended up being. But I've just received a voice note from a friend of mine, my best friend, bestest, longest friend. We've seen each other like maybe, I don't know, I haven't seen him for 10 years. He's moved to China. He's doing very well for himself. But he's back in Natal now. And he got a shard of glass in his foot. And it's funny, you know, I was talking about this just the other day to somebody else. But I dig that kind of stuff, you know. When I lived on Zanzibar Island for a year, there's a little creature. They call it a sand fly. It's not really a fly, but that gets in between your toes and it lays eggs in the web between your toes. Sometimes on the top and sometimes underneath, but in the web. You don't feel it. You can sometimes, but 95 times out of 100, the victim doesn't feel it happen. And I developed a reputation for digging those things out. It has to be done in a particular way, and it's not revolting. It might sound revolting, but it's not. The eggs, they're in a little round sack, soft, so you have to dig carefully. And so people would come to me all the time, you know, tourists and what have you. They would eventually feel that there's something inside there, and they'd panic, and they'd mention it to somebody. And that person would say, "Oh, go to Simon. He'll do it for you. He's good at it." And it's important that it be done perfectly, because the slightest slip will perforate the sac, causing the eggs to emerge in your flesh, you know, into that cavity left by the sac, around the sac. And so this chommy of mine has just sent me a message saying, "I wish you were here in Natal." One of his parents has died, and so he's sorting things out. He's come back home, taken leave for a few months, and in doing some renovations to their home, he got a shard of glass in his foot, and he reckons if I was there, he would let me take it out, but he wouldn't trust anybody else to do it. So that's put me in a great mood. Oh dear me. I'm supposed to be doing, Mr. Miller, I promise you I'm going to do it right after this. I'm supposed to be doing something for Mr. Miller, but it's so hot that I dread the thought of going outside. And I have to take something out of my bucky. It's a 50-kilogram bag of millies, carrying 50 kgs on my shoulders into the garage in this heat, and then just going to this other place to do this thing in this heat is, whew. Anyway, I must go and do it soon, right away. But it's hot here. Brandwarm. What do we want to talk about? Preparations. I've been thinking very hard about topics for videos, and I have many written down. And then I have a whole bunch written down in a notebook, my special notebook. I have a number on my other screen, and I have over 100 on my phone. So there's no shortage of topics. But you don't always want to do this or that. And I owe Jan van der Merwe one on the dancing Israelis. And I've got to do kind of a deep dive into some ESCOM stuff, but I'm not listening because it's too hot. So I'm just going to chat to you about preparations. And if you're an experienced prepper, oh dear me, I tied my shoelace too tight, and it's the formal shoes. I don't know why I put them on. I could just as well have put slops on, but I always feel like I'm being dishonest. You know, if I wear a smart shirt and, you know, not smart pants and smart shoes, so I always do. Even though nobody would know any better. Yeah, the formal shoes, so they're not the most comfortable at the best of times. Anyway. If you're an experienced prepper and you're better prepared than I am, for instance, then this is not the video for you. This is a general chit-chat with novices. People new to Suidlanders who may feel, oh, excuse me, who may feel that they lack ideas, who have more money or resources than ideas at present, or I beg your pardon, everybody. I apologize sincerely for this, man. There we go. Or people who are thinking of becoming Suidlanders who are not yet Suidlanders and who, you know, they want to dip their toe in the water. Where would I begin to prepare for the consequences, the inevitable and ineluctable? Let's be clear on one thing. We've got to have some stuff in common. Yeah, you know, we have to have some starting points, some first positions. We have to, in order for you and me to hold a proper conversation, agree, given that I am one speaking to many. So the common denominators have to begin with me. That's more or less how it works, right? That the ineluctable, unavoidable consequences of the collapse of ESCOM would include an effective race-based conflict. Now, given that this is the new South Africa Rainbow Nation, and given that I have a long track record of unusually close, good, healthy relationships with black people in my career and where I lived and so on, going back to my childhood, nobody is comfortable pointing out these things. But the reality is that with all of the best will in the world, in a society like South Africa's, a conflict would, if there was a conflict, necessarily be along ethnic and racial lines. It would rupture, like you see those photographs in National Geographic of the Great Rift System, or whatever it's called, that runs from about, you know, it runs the length of Africa practically on the east coast, the Rift Valley and all of that. And then you see photographs of chasms developing following hurricanes and earthquakes and volcanoes and what have you, you know, caught on camera in the Philippines and maybe somewhere in the USA or wherever. That fracturing, that rupturing would be along racial lines. It's the nature of our society. It's like in the Yugoslavia civil war. In the end, it was Eastern Orthodox Serbs, Roman Catholic Croats, and the Muslims in Bosnia, the Bosnian Muslims, the Albanian Kosovars, those ethnic groups and those religions that were at one another's throats. Just was. End of story. Like it, don't like it. Still the same. The same in Rwanda. A society such as ours that is not homogeneous or homogeneous, that is very unhomogeneous. When it goes wrong along those lines. So if we can agree on that one uncomfortable truth that even I must face. I told you in a video recently, my maid said to me that the maids at the bus stop say that I am the nicest employer in Van der Kloof. I always try to have, why? I'm not on some mission to be an egalitarian. I'm not. You might even call me a supremacist if you like, given the huge degree of pride I take in my people and their history and their culture and their science and their progress and their development over 2,500 years, the likes of which the world has never seen. But, I like to be nice. And so it's not a comfortable thing for me to say this bluntly. But if we can agree on that one thing, then we can hold an intellectually sound conversation. That one thing as a pragmatic reality. A pragmatic reality, like your grass growing on your lawn. Whether it suits you or not, whether it fits into your ideals or not, inconveniently, the stuff grows. The wrong kind of grass, weeds, patchy, too long, after the rain it shoots up, then it becomes stringy when it goes to seed. That's it. End of story. You've got to deal with it on that basis. The pragmatic reality of of South Africa is that if there is a cataclysmic event that causes people such great stress, distress, that they act out on other people, it's going to be race-based. Finished and clear. Get used to it. Grow up. It's not a reason for hatred. In fact, it doubles the imperative to be good to those around you. If you can accept that, then you can accept that there is a strong likelihood that depredation, rapine, marauding, and plundering desperately will be one of the, as a class, the chief characteristics, if not the chief characteristic, of such a crisis. It's a notice of a call from Germany. I'll return it. Because of the numbers involved. When you have roughly 4.8 million white people, who are relatively wealthier, for which I make no apologies, trust me. So it's not about saying, oh, we're rich and they're poor because we're so bad. It's rubbish, man. Rubbish. Just look at the matter for yourself. Advantage taken? For sure. To the victor goes the spoils? For sure. But that has been the case for every people in all of the history of all of the world. But when you have a very small, relatively wealthier population group that has nothing in common, I mean, for all intents and purposes, with the vast majority around it, who is likely to be the target of anger, frustration, despair, and everything else that people are going to feel in such a time as the time of Eskom collapsing? It's the nature of the thing. And to call people barbarians or whatever is to miss the point. It's to entirely miss the point. That's what happens. That's how it works, whether you like it or you don't. And some poor fools get it into their heads that the natural response to that is to shoot people. I'm not saying you shouldn't defend your property. Of course you should. Shoot people dead. Shoot them in a part of the body where they're guaranteed to die after suffering grievous pain. But again, it's to miss the point. Removing yourself from the threat is the real point. And suggesting that you, with your 200 rounds of legal and 2,000 rounds of illegal ammunition, are going to be able to withstand the depredations and assaults of however many thousands of people interminably, indefinitely, is dumb. You're dumb. Jy's dom. Not least because you will lose everything and you will lose your life. More to the point of righteousness, you will cost your family their lives because you're. It's true. Their debts will be on your head because there is no way that drinking water out of your toilet cistern, when the stopcocks are turned off, is going to see you through a week. Never mind 3 years, or whatever in your fanciful mind, what period of time you think you can last in some suburb of Pretoria or Welkom or who knows where, Vereniging, Pietermaritzburg. Your family will die because of you. Yes, I saw something one day. I saw this with my own eyes, and I'm telling you, it has occurred to me 100 times since then that it was a privilege. I witnessed on a WhatsApp group 2 leaders of organizations have a go at one another, and dear me, it was childlike. Really. It's one thing to be a man and to stand up for yourself, but the one guy said, "Jy ken my nie. Ek het nie 'n bang haar op my kop nie." And the other guy said, "Ek vat nie een tree agtertoe nie." This is in their dispute between one another. They're not talking about under other circumstances, like when they climb into the ring with Kali Knutzer. Don't you, I'm going to show you then. No, it's you and me. These two mamparas having a fight in public. Because the one is trying to be more macho than the other. That's how it began. And these guys believe that they can defend their suburb or their farm or their farmstead, their small holding, their plot. How? And please don't say, "Yeah, but I've got underground water." Please don't. Please don't. You and how many hundreds of people, because you will need hundreds to defend your fortress, Sir Braveheart. Good Sir Braveheart, defending his castle like in a child's reading book. You and how many hundreds? The answer, sadly, is to leave. It just is. It just is. And we have I'm not being patient now, I'm being snotty. I know that, because I'm, man. After the conversations I've been obliged to hold for 5 years. But, for the longest time, we have said this patiently and kindly and gently. It's only now that I'm irascible. I'm fed up. It's normal. I should be fed up. With dealing with this reasoning, such as it is. Reasoning, strictly speaking, is not the correct word. Do you think I like living in this area? There are nice things about Van der Kloof, make no mistake. It's not filthy. It's not pig filthy. It's not terrifyingly crime-ridden. It's not it's not crumbling and collapsing. You know, if you drive from, for example, from Van der Kloof northward, you know there's a road that bisects South Africa like a line of latitude, or this portion of South Africa between Bloemfontein and Kimberley. It runs east-west. And you've got to get to that road to get to Bloem, to get to Johannesburg, if that's where you want to go. So from here you drive almost due north. You get onto that road and you hit a right. If you don't go that way to Bloemfontein, if you go, obviously if you're going due north and then due east to Bloem, you're making two legs of a triangle. Okay, if you took the dirt road, mostly dirt road, the service road, whatever you call it, district road, that would be the third leg of the triangle. If you went that way, through the platteland, through the dorpies, your heart would break at the sight of the collapse of so many of these little dorpies. It's heartbreaking. and Van der Kloof is nowhere near there. We're busy putting in this thing, what you call? A solar street lamps. We're going forward. We're not back. Forward. But do you think that I like living 7 hours away from our sons in 40 degrees Celsius? I can't stand it. Where I'm one of very few English speakers. Not that that's a big thing, but it is a thing. In a little dorpie in the middle of nowhere. So don't think that you're alone, that you're uniquely victimized or potentially uniquely victimized by the prospect of giving up everything. We have to change we have to think like that, whether we like it or not. We have to remove ourselves from the conflict to an area that is demographically advantageous, that is remote, and that is sustainable as an area, as a region, by virtue of water and land and so on. You must, this is the first step of preparation, is to buy into that, and then to buy in physically, to become a member of Saitlanders. You have to acknowledge first that the nature of the thing, whether you're white, black, colored, Indian, we happen to be white. We could just as well be Filipino. For the purposes of the reasoning, I mean. If Eskom collapses, and if many millions of people find themselves hungry, thirsty, they won't be running water, cold, jobless, unable to pay the rent on them jondolo, on them nkuku. With children crying from hunger pangs, they will go berserk. And that berserk will be taken out on those people who are perceived to have to possess the best means of remedying their ailments, their complaints. That is the nature of the beast. Not in South Africa, in Rwanda, in Yugoslavia, in Germany, in you name it. So I won't take up very much more of your time, and I must go and do that thing for Mr. Miller. It's very important. Thank you for watching this video, if it helped you at all. Bye-bye.